The GPS tracker hasn't moved in 7 years. Then, at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March, it starts walking again, one slow, deliberate step at a time across the Mojave Desert, in the exact direction Marcus Chen was heading when he vanished. Detective Sarah Brennan stares at her laptop screen in the dim glow of her kitchen, coffee growing cold in her hands. The blinking red dot moves with mechanical precision across the satellite map, each pulse separated by exactly 30 seconds. She's been tracking this signal for the past 4 hours, ever since the automated alert dragged her from sleep with its shrill notification. 7 years ago, Marcus Chen, a 28-year-old software engineer from San Francisco, set out for a solo hiking trip in Joshua Tree National Park. He was supposed to return on Sunday evening. When Monday came and went without word, his sister Emma filed a missing person report. The search teams found his abandoned Subaru at a trailhead, his tent pitched at a designated campsite, and his GPS tracker, a high-end Garmin device he'd bought specifically for the trip, lying beside a dry creek bed 15 miles into the wilderness. What they never found was Marcus. Sarah runs her finger along the screen, tracing the tracker's current path. The coordinates place it deep in the Mojave, far beyond the original search area, moving northwest at roughly 2 miles per hour. A human walking pace. Her pulse quickens as she watches another blip appear, then another. The Chen case was her first missing person investigation as a newly minted detective. She'd spent months combing through Marcus's digital footprint, interviewing his co-workers, following up on every credible sighting from Las Vegas to San Diego. The trail always went cold. Eventually, the department shifted resources to more recent cases, and Marcus Chen became another file in the cabinet of the unsolved. But Sarah never stopped checking the GPS alerts. Once a month, sometimes more, she'd log into the tracking service, hoping for a miracle. The device had enough battery life for years if it entered power-saving mode, and the manufacturer confirmed it would automatically reactivate if moved more than 50 feet from its last known position. Now, after 7 years of silence, it's moving. Sarah's phone buzzes with a text from her partner, Detective Mike Torres. "You seeing this? Chen GPS is active." She types back quickly. "Been watching for hours. It's maintaining steady pace, heading northwest. Could be animal interference? Coyote dragging it?" Sarah frowns at the suggestion. The movement is too consistent, too purposeful. Animals don't walk in straight lines for hours. She's about to respond when her phone rings. "Torres, you're up early," she says, answering on the first ring. "Haven't slept. Been monitoring since midnight when the alert came through." His voice carries the same tension she feels. "Sarah, this isn't random. Something's happening out there. We need to notify the family." Already called Emma Chen. She's driving down from San Francisco as we speak. Sarah feels a familiar knot form in her stomach. Emma Chen had been relentless during the original investigation, calling daily for updates, organizing her own search parties, offering rewards for information. Watching hope drain from her eyes as weeks turned to months had been one of the hardest parts of the case. "What's our move?" Sarah asks, already knowing the answer. "Daylight's in 3 hours. I've got a helicopter on standby and a ground team ready to deploy. We follow that signal wherever it leads." Sarah nods, though he can't see her. "I'll grab my gear and meet you at the station." As she hangs up, another thought strikes her. She opens a new browser tab and navigates to Marcus Chen's social media, profiles accounts that have remained frozen in time since his disappearance. His last Instagram post shows him grinning beside his packed hiking backpack, caption reading, "Ready for some solo time in the desert." Sometimes you have to go missing to find yourself. Hashtag Joshua Tree, hashtag solo hike, hashtag digital detox. The irony of that caption has haunted Sarah for years. Now, as she watches the GPS tracker continue its steady progress across her screen, She wonders if Marcus Chun really did find himself out there in the wilderness, and if so, why it took 7 years for him to start moving again. She closes the laptop and heads upstairs to change into hiking gear, her mind racing with possibilities. Equipment malfunction, animal displacement, hoax, but deep in her gut, she knows this is something else entirely. The GPS tracker pauses for exactly 60 seconds, then resumes its northwestern trajectory. Sarah checks her watch. 4:23 a.m. in 3 hours. Should be in a helicopter flying toward coordinates that have been static for 7 years. In 3 hours, she might finally get answers to questions that have kept her awake more nights than she cares to count. But first, she needs to prepare for the possibility that what they find out there might be worse than never knowing at all. The red dot blinks again on her phone screen, steady and insistent as a heartbeat. The helicopter blades slice through the morning air as Sarah peers through the window at the vast expanse of desert below. Endless stretches of sand and scrub brush extend to the horizon, broken only by the occasional Joshua tree standing sentinel against the pale sky. Somewhere down there, a GPS tracker that's been silent for 7 years continues its mysterious journey. Signal still active, Torres shouts over the rotor noise, his eyes glued to the tablet displaying real-time coordinates, moving at the same pace, same direction. Whatever's carrying, it has been walking for almost 8 hours straight. Sarah adjusts her headset and studies the terrain. They're flying over some of the most remote wilderness in Southern California areas, where even experienced desert rats get turned around and lost. The thought of someone surviving out here for 7 years seems impossible, yet the alternative explanations don't add up either. How far to the current position? She asks the pilot. 12 minutes at current speed, comes the reply. Ground team is 30 minutes behind us by vehicle, but they'll have to hike the last 5 miles. No roads where we're heading. Torres leans forward, pointing at his screen. It's stopped. Sarah's pulse quickens. The red dot that's been moving with mechanical precision for hours has gone stationary. She checks her watch. 7:41 a.m. How long has it been still? 3 minutes and counting. Torres frowns at the display. Before this, the longest pause was 90 seconds. Through the helicopter's front windshield, Sarah spots a flash of reflected light in the distance. As they approach, the source becomes clear, a small solar panel array partially buried in sand, connected to what appears to be a weather monitoring station. There, she points, set us down near that equipment. The helicopter descends in a swirl of dust and debris. As the rotors wind down, the desert silence rushes in a profound quiet, broken only by the whisper of wind across sand. Sarah and Torres climb out, immediately struck by the dry heat despite the early hour. The GPS coordinates place the tracker less than a quarter mile from their landing site. Sarah checks her handheld unit and points northwest, toward a cluster of boulders rising from the desert floor like sleeping giants. This way. They hike in silence, weapons holstered, but hands resting on their grips. The sand shifts beneath their boots, making each step uncertain. Sarah's water bottle, already half empty, reminds her why solo desert hiking is considered a death wish. Movement, Torres whispers, dropping into a crouch. Sarah follows his gaze and sees it a figure seated motionless against the largest boulder, about 200 yards ahead. Even at this distance, she can tell it's human-shaped, but something about the posture seems wrong. Too still, too perfectly positioned. They approach with tactical precision, using smaller rocks and desert brush for cover. As they get closer, details emerge that make Sarah's stomach clench. The figure is wearing modern hiking clothes, synthetic. Fabrics that look relatively new, but the body position suggests death or unconsciousness. 50 yards out, Torres raises his hand in a stop signal. Through binoculars, he scans the area for threats before giving the all clear. At 20 yards, Sarah can see the GPS tracker clearly. It's attached to a day pack sitting beside the figure, its small LED blinking steadily. The person, a man, based on build and clothing, sits with his back against the rock, head tilted forward, arms resting naturally at his sides. "Sir?" Torres calls out. "Police officers. Can you hear me?" No response. They close the final distance with weapons drawn but pointed down. Sarah circles to approach from the side while Torres maintains a clear line of sight. As she reaches the figure, her breath catches. The man appears to be Asian, roughly the right age and build to be Marcus Chun. His hiking clothes are dusty but not degraded by years of exposure. Most unsettling, his skin looks healthy, not mummified or desiccated as she'd expect from someone who'd been in the desert for 7 years. "He's breathing," Sarah announces, kneeling beside the figure. Shallow but steady. Torres moves closer, holstering his weapon. "Marcus? Marcus Chun?" The man's eyelids flutter. Slowly, he raises his head and looks directly at Sarah with dark, intelligent eyes that show no sign of confusion or distress. When he speaks, his voice is clear and calm. "You found me." Sarah's mind reels. After 7 years, those are his first words, not "help me" or "where am I?" but an acknowledgement that suggests he was expecting them. "Are you Marcus Chun?" she asks, pulling out her phone to photograph him. He nods once, then looks past her toward the helicopter in the distance. "I've been waiting." "Waiting for what?" Marcus doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a small device, another GPS tracker, this one clearly newer than the one attached to his pack. "I needed to make sure you'd come alone." Well, relatively alone. His eyes shift between Sarah and Torres. 2 officers. That's manageable. Something in his tone sends ice through Sarah's veins. This isn't the confused, grateful relief of a rescued hiker. This is calculated, planned. "Marcus, you've been missing for 7 years, Torres says, his hand drifting back toward his weapon. "Your family thinks you're dead." 7 years, 4 months, 18 days, Marcus corrects with unsettling precision. "And my family is safer believing I'm dead." Sarah studies his face, looking for signs of mental breakdown or trauma. What she sees instead is a clarity that frightens her. "Why did you activate the tracker now?" Marcus stands up with fluid, practiced movement. No stiffness, no sign of prolonged exposure or malnutrition. He brushes sand from his pants and looks directly at Sarah. "Because they found me 3 days ago. And now they're coming for you too." Sarah's hand instinctively moves to her sidearm. As Marcus's words register, "Who found you? Who's coming?" Marcus glances toward the horizon, scanning the empty desert with the practiced eye of someone who's learned to watch for threats. "The same people who've been hunting me for 7 years. The ones who killed the real reason I came out here." Torres steps closer, positioning himself at an angle that gives him a clear line of sight on Marcus, while keeping Sarah in his peripheral vision. "We need you to start from the beginning, slowly. There isn't time for the whole story." Marcus hefts his pack with efficient movements that speak of years of practice. "But I'll give you the short version while we move. Staying in one place too long is how they caught up to me." Sarah feels the familiar weight of a case spinning beyond her understanding. "We're not going anywhere until you explain what's happening. You've been declared dead. Your sister Emma has been. Emma's safe as long as she believes I'm dead," Marcus interrupts, his voice sharp with urgency. "The moment she knows I'm alive, she becomes leverage against me." He starts walking northwest, the same direction the GPS tracker had been moving. After a moment's hesitation, Sarah and Torres follow, maintaining tactical spacing. 7 years ago, I discovered something I wasn't supposed to see, Marcus begins, his pace steady and confident despite the rough terrain. "I was working for a tech startup called Nexus Solutions. We were developing predictive algorithms for the Department of Defense, nothing classified. Just efficiency optimization for supply chains. Sarah pulls out her notebook, trying to document everything while navigating the sandy ground. What kind of discovery? Our system was being fed data it shouldn't have had access to. Financial records, communication intercepts, movement patterns of specific individuals. The algorithm wasn't predicting supply needs, it was tracking people. Torres wiped sweat from his forehead. What kind of people? Whistleblowers, journalists, government employees who'd filed ethics complaints. Marcus pauses to check his GPS device. Anyone who posed a threat to certain interests was being monitored. And not just monitored, predicted. The system could anticipate their movements, their contacts, their vulnerabilities. The pieces start clicking together in Sarah's mind. You were going to expose it. I copied the files and arranged to meet with a contact at the Washington Post. But the night before I was supposed to drive to LA to catch my flight, I got a call from my coworker, David Park. He'd been working late and overheard our boss on a phone call. They knew what I'd done. Marcus stops abruptly and holds up his hand, listening. In the distance, Sarah hears the faint sound of helicopter rotors, not their aircraft, which they'd left behind, but something approaching from the east. Move, Marcus says, breaking into a jog toward a cluster of rock formations ahead. They've found the landing site. Sarah and Torres exchange glances before following. The sound grows louder, definitely military aircraft, moving fast and low. David told me to run, Marcus continues as they reach the shelter of the rocks. Said he'd try to buy me time by deleting what he could from the servers. I grabbed my hiking gear and drove to Joshua Tree, figuring I'd lay low in the desert for a few days until I could figure out my next move. The helicopter passes overhead, sleek and black with no visible markings. Sarah counts at least 6 figures rappelling down near their original landing site. Why didn't you contact the police? The FBI? Torres asks, pressing himself against the rock face. Marcus gives him a look that's equal parts pity and frustration. Because the system was predicting law enforcement responses too. Every major agency had been infiltrated or compromised. The files I copied showed FBI agents, D officers, even local police departments feeding information into the network. Sarah feels her world tilt slightly. That's impossible. The coordination required, not impossible, just profitable. Marcus checks his watch. Defense contractors, private intelligence firms, organized crime syndicates, they all needed the same thing: information, control, the ability to stay ahead of investigations. Another helicopter appears on the horizon, this one heading directly toward their position. We need to move deeper into the rocks, Marcus says, shouldering his pack. There's a cave system about half a mile ahead. Natural formation doesn't show up on satellite imagery. As they climb over rough stone, Sarah's mind races through the implications. If this is true, why surface now? Why risk exposure? Because David Park's body was found 3 days ago in his apartment in San Francisco. Apparent suicide. 23 floors down from his balcony. Marcus's voice carries 7 years of barely contained rage. David had been feeding me information. All these years, helping me stay hidden. They finally trace the leaks back to him. Torres stumbles on loose rock. How do you know this? Because David sent me one final message before they killed him. He'd discovered something new. The system has evolved. It's not just tracking potential threats anymore, it's actively eliminating them. The second helicopter passes directly overhead, close enough that they can see armed figures in tactical gear scanning the ground below. Sarah presses herself deeper into the rock crevice and tries to process what Marcus is telling her. The GPS tracker, she realizes. You turned it on to bring us here. Why? Marcus stops climbing and turns to face her, his expression grave. Because according to David's final intel, Detective Sarah Brennan and Detective Mike Torres were flagged by the system 72 hours ago. Your investigation into cold cases has identified patterns that certain people don't want identified. Sarah's blood runs cold. What patterns? Missing persons who were about to expose corruption. Witnesses who disappeared before trials. Activists who vanished while investigating corporate malfeasance. Marcus resumes climbing, his voice echoing off the rock walls. You've been connecting dots that some very powerful people worked hard to scatter. The sound of the helicopters fades as they move deeper into the rock formation. Marcus leads them through a narrow passage that opens into a surprisingly large cavern, equipped with camping gear, water supplies, and sophisticated communication equipment. Welcome to my home for the past 7 years, he says, activating a device that sweeps for electronic surveillance. The only place I've found that's truly off their grid. Sarah stares at the setup, clearly the result of years of careful preparation and paranoid security measures. How do we know you're telling the truth? Marcus walks to a laptop computer and begins typing. Because I'm about to show you the kill order that was issued for both of you yesterday morning. The laptop screen flickers to life, displaying what appears to be an encrypted communication interface. Marcus's fingers move across the keyboard with practiced efficiency, navigating through layers of security protocols that make Sarah's head spin. David managed to maintain access to a read-only version of their system. Marcus explains, pulling up a document that makes Sarah's stomach drop. He'd been monitoring it for years, warning me whenever my heat signature got too hot. The screen shows a detailed dossier with Sarah's photo, home address, vehicle information, and daily routine mapped out with disturbing precision. Beside it, a similar file for Torres displays his children's school schedules and his wife's work location. Target acquisition, priority alpha, reads the header in stark red letters. Subjects Brennan, S. and Torres, M. have demonstrated pattern recognition capabilities that pose operational security risks. Recommendation: immediate termination, staged as random crime or accident. Torres staggers backward, his face pale. This has to be fake, some kind of elaborate hoax. Check the metadata, Marcus says, turning the laptop toward him. Cross-reference the document signatures with known government encryption standards. Run the facial recognition data through official databases. It's all authentic. Sarah studies the screen, her detective training warring with disbelief. The level of detail is staggering: surveillance photos of her leaving her apartment, timestamps of her movements, even transcripts of phone conversations with her mother last week. How long have they been watching us? She asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus pulls up another interface. Active. Created to test biological warfare countermeasures. Thomas Reeves was an IRS investigator who found evidence of massive tax fraud by defense contractors. Maria Santos was a journalist whose investigation into missing indigenous women led her to a human trafficking ring with government protection. Each person nods as they're introduced, their stories adding layers to the horrifying picture emerging in Sarah's mind. But we're not just hiding here, Colonel Washington continues. We're fighting back, gathering evidence, protecting targets, and slowly building a case that will bring the whole thing down. A case for whom? Sarah asks. If the system is as compromised as you say, there are still good people in the system, Rachel interrupts. Federal judges who can't be bought. Journalists with enough protection to publish the truth. Congressional representatives who haven't been compromised. The key is identifying them and presenting evidence in a way that makes the network's usual suppression tactics impossible. Marcus pulls out a tablet and shows them a complex organizational chart. We've mapped 70% of the network's structure. Corporate executives, government officials, law enforcement leaders, intelligence operatives. The evidence we've gathered is overwhelming. Then why haven't you released it? Torres demands. Because every time we've tried, the people we trusted turned out to be compromised, or they died before they could act on the information. Dr. Chun speaks for the first time, her voice carrying years of frustration. We need multiple simultaneous releases across different platforms, with protection for the journalists and officials involved. Rachel turns to Sarah and Torres. That's where you come in. Your investigation into cold cases identified patterns that the network thought they'd successfully hidden. But more importantly, your status as active law enforcement officers gives you credibility that we don't have. Had, Sarah corrects. We're officially missing now, presumed dead. Actually, no, Rachel smiles grimly. According to the official reports that will be filed tomorrow morning, you and Detective Torres were called away on a classified federal investigation. Your department believes you're working undercover for Homeland Security. Your families believe you're in protective custody. Sarah stares at her. How did you? We have people inside the system too. Not many, but enough to manipulate records and create plausible cover stories when we need to extract someone. Colonel Washington activates a large screen showing what appears to be a detailed operational plan. In 72 hours, we're going to release everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence we've gathered over 7 years. Simultaneously to the Washington Post, New York Times, WikiLeaks, and 12 international news organizations. And we need you to present the law enforcement perspective, Rachel adds. Your testimony about the patterns you identified, the official suppression of your investigations, the kill order issued against you, it's the missing piece that ties everything together. Torres runs his hands through his hair. And if this doesn't work? If they suppress the story or discredit the evidence, Marcus's expression darkens. Then we disappear deeper underground and wait for the next opportunity. Because the alternative is watching the network continue to murder anyone who threatens their interests. Through the command center's reinforced windows, Sarah can see the sun setting over the canyon, painting the hidden settlement in shades of gold and red. Somewhere out there, the network's assets are searching for them, updating kill orders, planning their next moves. But for the first time since this nightmare began, Sarah feels something other than fear. Surrounded by these survivors, these ghosts of the network's past victims, she feels a dangerous emotion taking root. Hope. And with hope comes the possibility of justice. What do you need us to do? She asks. The next morning, Sarah sits in front of a professional video camera set up in what was once a natural cave, but has been converted into a secure recording studio. The walls are lined with sound-dampening material, and multiple backup recording devices ensure that nothing will be lost. State your name and badge number for the record, Rachel instructs from behind the camera. Detective Sarah Marie Brennan, badge number 4127, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. Her voice sounds steady despite the gravity of what she's about to do. I have served as a detective for 8 years, specializing in missing persons and cold cases. Torres sits beside her, equally composed, but with tension evident in his shoulders. They've spent the past 12 hours reviewing evidence, cross-referencing their own case files with the network's activities, and preparing testimony that could either expose the conspiracy or get them all killed. Detective Brennan, Rachel continues, please describe the pattern you identified in your investigation of missing persons cases over the past 2 years. Sarah takes a deep breath. This is it, the moment she crosses the line. From victim to whistleblower. Beginning in January 2022, I noticed an unusual clustering of disappearances involving individuals who had recently filed complaints with government agencies, contacted journalists about potential stories, or were scheduled to testify in cases involving corporate malfeasance. She pulls out a folder thick with case files. In total, I documented 37 missing persons cases that fit this pattern. She opens the first file. Janet Morrison, environmental scientist. Disappeared 3 days before she was scheduled to testify about water contamination cover-ups by Axion Industries. Her car was found in a river, but her body was never recovered. The camera captures every detail as Sarah methodically presents case after case. Each file represents a life cut short, a truth suppressed, a victory for the network's shadow operations. Detective Torres, Rachel turns the camera toward him. You were Detective Brennan's partner on several of these investigations. What was the department's response when you presented this pattern analysis? Torres's jaw tightens. We were told to focus on more recent cases. When we persisted, Detective Brennan was transferred to a different unit, and I was assigned to patrol duty pending a disciplinary review for excessive focus on conspiracy theories. And the case files? Classified as low priority. Investigation suspended pending new evidence that never materialized. From her position behind the camera, Dr. Chun hands Rachel a tablet. We need to show them the kill order now. While their reactions are fresh, Rachel nods and produces the laptop Marcus had shown them in the cave. The screen displays their detailed surveillance profiles, complete with the immediate termination recommendations. Detectives, you're looking at documents from the network's internal system. Please describe what you see. Sarah feels her blood chill all over again as she reads the cold, clinical language describing her daily routines, her vulnerabilities, her family connections. This is a detailed surveillance profile on both of us, including recommendations for our assassination. Staged to look like random crime. How do you know these documents are authentic? The level of detail is impossible to fake, Torres responds. Personal information that only long-term surveillance could have gathered. Phone conversations that were never officially recorded. Movement patterns that match our actual behavior over months. Rachel zooms in on the metadata. Note the document headers, the encryption signatures, the classified routing codes. Our cybersecurity experts have verified that these documents originated from servers linked to Nexus Solutions, the same company where Marcus Chin worked. The recording session continues for 3 hours, building a comprehensive record of how local law enforcement discovered and was targeted by a vast criminal conspiracy. When they finish, Sarah feels emotionally drained, but oddly relieved. The Kaumbi. Truth is finally on record. Now comes the hard part, Colonel Washington says as they review the footage. We need to get you both safely to Washington, D.C. for the press conference. Press conference? Sarah asks. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., simultaneous. With the document release, you'll be appearing alongside Senator Patricia Valdez, one of the few members of Congress we're certain hasn't been compromised. She's been investigating defense contractor fraud for 2 years. Marcus looks up from a computer terminal where he's been monitoring network communications. We have a problem. They've escalated the search. Military contractors, private security firms, even some FBI assets that appear to be compromised. There are hundreds of people looking for us now. Rachel studies the intelligence reports. They know we're planning something big. The question is whether they know the timeline. We could move up the release, Dr. Chun suggests. Go public tonight instead of waiting. No, Colonel Washington shakes his head. Senator Valdez needs time to coordinate with the journalists. If we release prematurely, they'll have time to mount a defense, discredit the evidence, or worse, eliminate the reporters before they can publish. A new alert flashes on Marcus's screen. Helicopter activity increasing in our area. At least 6 aircraft conducting grid searches. Through the command center's periscope, a cleverly disguised system that allows them to observe the surface without being detected, Sarah can see military helicopters in the distance, methodically searching canyon after canyon. How long until they find us? She asks. Maybe 12 hours if we're lucky, Rachel replies. 4 hours if we're not. Colonel Washington. Pulls up a tactical map on the main display. Option 1. We try to move everyone deeper underground, wait them out, and hope they give up the search. They won't give up, Marcus says flatly. Too much is at stake. Option 2. We split up. Small teams moving separately to predetermined rally points. Harder to track, but higher risk if anyone gets caught. Option 3? Torres asks. Rachel's expression grows grim. We fight. Use this as our Alamo. Make enough noise that the outside world pays attention. Sarah studies the faces around her, people who've sacrificed everything to expose the truth. Who've lived in hiding for years to stay alive. The thought of their deaths accomplishing nothing is unbearable. There's a fourth option, she says slowly. What if we don't run? What if we surrender? The room falls silent. Hear me out, Sarah continues. They want us dead, but they want us dead quietly. Officially, we're missing cops who disappeared during an investigation. If we surrender publicly, in front of cameras, they can't just kill us without raising questions. They'll discredit us, Dr. Chun protests. Claim we're delusional, charge us with crimes, make us disappear into the system. Maybe, but it buys time for the evidence. Release. And it puts faces on the story real law enforcement officers who discovered the conspiracy from the inside. Torres nods slowly. A public surrender forces their hand. They have to explain why 2 cops with clean records suddenly went rogue. Marcus looks skeptical. You're betting your lives that media attention will protect you. We're betting our lives either way, Sarah replies. At least this way, our testimony gets heard before they silence us. Rachel considers the proposal. There's precedent. Snowden, Manning, other whistleblowers who went public before going underground. It worked for some of them. And for others it didn't, Colonel Washington points out. The periscope alarm sounds helicopters are getting closer, their search. Pattern tightening. Whatever decision they make needs to happen now. Sarah looks at Torres, seeing her own determination reflected in his eyes. They've come too far to hide now. Make the call, she tells Rachel. Set up the press conference. But we're not going underground again. The call goes out at dawn. Rachel's encrypted communications network activates a chain of contacts that reaches from the hidden canyon to newsrooms in Washington, New York, and London. Within hours, the machinery of exposure begins to turn. Senator Valdez is in, Rachel announces, hanging up a secure satellite phone. Press conference is confirmed for 2 p.m. Eastern at the Capitol. She's already spoken with the journalists. They're preparing simultaneous publication for tonight's news cycle. Sarah watches the organized chaos around her as Haven prepares for what might be its final day. Equipment is being backed up, evidence files copied to multiple secure servers, and contingency plans activated. Everyone knows that going public means abandoning this sanctuary forever. Vehicle convoy approaching from the south. Marcus calls out from the surveillance station. 6 SUVs, government plates. Through the periscope, Sarah can see the black vehicles navigating the rough canyon terrain with military precision. Number. Attempt at stealth. This is a show of force. How did they find us so fast? Torres asks. Colonel Washington grimaces as he monitors radio chatter. They didn't find us. They're surrounding every canyon within 50 miles, cutting off escape routes. Classic containment strategy. Rachel checks her watch. We have 4 hours until the press conference. Can we hold them off that long? Depends on their rules of engagement, the colonel replies. If they're under orders to take us alive for interrogation, we might have leverage. If they've been ordered to eliminate witnesses, he doesn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understands the stakes. Dr. Chun looks up from her laptop. I'm uploading everything to our dead man switches now. If we don't check, in every 6 hours, the files automatically release to every news organization and government watchdog on our list. That won't help us if we're dead, Marcus points out. No, but it ensures our deaths accomplish something. The radio crackles. With an incoming transmission on official law enforcement frequencies. Unknown individuals in Grid 7 Alpha. This is Agent Patricia Morrison, FBI. You are surrounded. Exit your vehicles with hands visible and prepare for peaceful surrender. Sarah recognizes the name Agent Morrison had been involved in several of the missing persons cases she'd investigated. Cases that had been mysteriously downgraded or closed without resolution. She's one of them, Sarah tells Rachel. Morrison's been suppressing investigations for years. Rachel keys the radio. Agent Morrison, this is Detective Sarah Brennan, badge number 4127, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. I'm here with Detective Mike Torres. We're prepared to surrender, but only in front of media witnesses. A long pause. Then, Detective Brennan, you and Detective Torres have been listed as missing for 36 hours. Your departments are very concerned for your welfare. Our welfare would be better served if this conversation was being recorded by journalists, Sarah responds. We have information about criminal conspiracy that requires public disclosure. Another pause, longer this time. Background chatter suggests Morrison is consulting with superiors. Detectives, you need to understand that you're in violation of federal law. Aiding and abetting fugitives, interfering with national security operations. What fugitives? Torres interrupts, taking the radio from Sarah. What national security operations? We're investigating missing persons cases and discovered evidence of organized criminal activity. Marcus monitors network communications on his equipment. They're nervous. Multiple conference calls happening right now. The word exposure keeps coming up. Rachel makes a decision. Patch me in the local news radio. If they want to play this publicly, let's really make it public. Within minutes, she's connected to KFWB News Radio in Los Angeles. This is Detective Sarah Brennan with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. My partner, Detective Mike. Torres and I are currently surrounded by federal agents who want to prevent us from testifying about a criminal conspiracy we've uncovered. The journalist on the other end sounds skeptical but intrigued. Detective Brennan, can you prove your identity? Sarah provides her badge number, case references, and personal details that quickly verify her status. We have evidence of a network involving defense contractors, organized crime, and compromised government officials. We've documented 37 missing persons cases involving people who were about to expose corporate fraud or government corruption. That's a serious allegation, Detective. Why not work through official channels? Because the official channels are compromised. We have surveillance records showing that federal agents have been targeting us for assassination since we identified this pattern. Through the periscope, Sarah can see increased activity around the federal vehicles. Agents with tactical gear are deploying, setting up what appears to be a siege perimeter. The radio interview continues for 20 minutes, broadcast live to the Los Angeles metropolitan area. Sarah and Torres carefully outline their investigation, the patterns they discovered, and the threats they've received. They avoid mentioning Haven or the other survivors, focusing on their own experience as law enforcement officers. Agent Morrison is requesting a direct line, Marcus reports. And we're getting calls from other news organizations. Word is spreading. Rachel takes the call from Morrison. Agent Morrison, I hope you heard the radio interview. As you can see, this situation is now very public. Detective Brennan, you're making a serious mistake. The individuals you're with are dangerous fugitives wanted for terrorism and espionage. What individuals? Sarah challenges. We're two cops who identified a pattern in missing persons cases. Are you saying that investigating crime is now terrorism? You're in possession of classified materials obtained through illegal means. We're in possession of evidence of criminal activity. Since when is law enforcement prohibited from investigating crimes? The standoff continues for hours. More news organizations pick up the story. Social media begins buzzing with hashtag Detective Brennan and hashtag missing persons conspiracy hashtags. The situation that the network wanted to handle quietly is becoming exactly the kind of public spectacle they work to avoid. Senator Valdez is watching the live streams. Rachel reports after another secure call. She's moved the press conference up to noon Eastern. The journalists are ready with the document release. Torres checks his watch. That's 90 minutes from now. Agent Morrison, Sarah keys the radio again. We're willing to surrender to federal custody, but only after we've provided our testimony to Congress. Senator Patricia Valdez has scheduled a hearing for noon Eastern. No deals, detective. Surrender now or we come in after you. Marcus looks up from his monitoring station, face grim. Military contractors are moving into position. This is escalating beyond law enforcement. They're treating this as a national security threat. Through the periscope, Sarah can see snipers taking positions on the canyon rim. The siege is becoming an assault preparation. How many ways out of here? She asks Colonel Washington. 3 escape tunnels, but they all lead to positions that are probably already covered. He studies tactical displays showing the federal positions. We're effectively trapped. Rachel makes another call, this one to a contact at CNN. We need live satellite coverage of our position. GPS coordinates ... She rattles off numbers. 2 law enforcement officers are about to be silenced for investigating government corruption. Within minutes, news helicopters appear on the horizon, staying just outside the federal perimeter. The standoff is now being broadcast live on multiple networks. Agent Morrison, Sarah transmits one final time. The world is watching. Whatever you do next will be recorded and broadcast. Choose carefully. The response comes not from Morrison, but from a different voice, cold, professional, completely without emotion. Detective Brennan, this is Control. You have 30 seconds to exit your position with hands visible, or we will assume hostile intent and respond accordingly. Sarah looks around at the faces of the people who've risked everything to expose the truth. In 30 seconds, their story will either reach the world or die with them in this canyon. Counteroffer, she says into the radio. Give us 20 minutes to finish uploading our evidence, and we'll walk out peacefully. 10 seconds, detective. Sarah and Torres exchange a look. There's no more time for negotiation, no more room for strategy, only the choice between surrender and resistance. And somewhere in Washington, Senator Patricia Valdez is preparing to take the podium with or without them. Upload complete, Doctor. Chun announces, her fingers flying across the keyboard as the final files transfer to secure servers worldwide. Everything is distributed. Deadman switches are active. Sarah takes a deep breath and keys the radio one last time. Control, this is Detective Brennan. We're coming out. But understand the evidence is already in motion. Nothing you do to us will stop the truth from coming out. She sets down the radio and looks at Torres. They've come this far together. They'll finish it together. Ready? She asks. Torres nods, checking his empty holster one final time. They'd surrendered their weapons hours ago as a show of good faith. Let's go face the music. But as they move toward the exit tunnel, Marcus grabs Sarah's arm. Wait, there's something you need to know before you walk out there. Sarah turns back, seeing an expression on Marcus's face she hasn't seen before, not fear, but something close to guilt. The network's files, he continues. The ones David Park sent me before he died. There's more than what I showed you. Rachel's eyes narrow. Marcus, what are you talking about? David discovered something in the final weeks before they killed him. The network isn't just eliminating threats to corporate interests. Marcus pulls up a new interface on his laptop. They're preparing for something bigger, a systematic purge. The screen shows a document titled Operation Clean Slate, A comprehensive plan for the elimination of hundreds of individuals across law enforcement, journalism, government oversight, and activism. Jesus Christ, Torres breathes, scanning. The names. This is half the investigative journalists in the country. And a quarter of the FBI's Internal Affairs Division, Sarah adds, recognizing several names from joint task force meetings. They're planning to gut the oversight system entirely. Dr. Chun stares at the timeline displayed on screen. Implementation begins in 72 hours. That's why they're so desperate to stop us now. We stumbled onto this just before they go operational. Rachel's secure phone rings. She answers quickly, her expression growing more tense with each passing second. Senator Valdez, she says after hanging up. The press conference has been moved up again. She's going live in 30 minutes. The document release is happening simultaneously across 6 time zones. Through the periscope, they can see the federal agents receiving new orders. The tactical teams are pulling back, replaced by what appears to be a cleanup crew. They're not planning to arrest us, Colonel Washington realizes, studying the new deployment pattern. They're preparing to eliminate all evidence that we were ever here. Marcus's radio equipment crackles with intercepted communications. Sanitize the area. No witnesses, no survivors, no traces. Stage it as a gas explosion or structural collapse. Sarah feels the last pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. That's why they've been so sloppy, so public with the siege. They want the news coverage to show us as dangerous fugitives who died resisting arrest. And any evidence we've gathered dies with us, Torres adds grimly. Rachel checks her watch. Valdez goes live in 25 minutes. If we can hold out until then. An explosion rocks the canyon, sending dust and debris cascading from the ceiling. Through the periscope, they can see that the access road has been destroyed, cutting off any potential escape route. Structural charges, Colonel Washington identifies. They're going to bring down the canyon walls and bury U.S., but Marcus is smiling, actually smiling, as he works at his computer terminal. They made one mistake. They're so focused on silencing us that they forgot about the live data feed. What live data feed? Sarah demands. The one that's been streaming everything, audio, video, tactical communications, to Senator Valdez's office for the past 4 hours. Marcus turns his laptop around to show a complex broadcasting interface. David Park designed this system as the ultimate insurance policy. Every word, every threat, every illegal order has been recorded and transmitted in real time. Rachel stares at the screen. You mean, Washington is watching this happen live? Senator Valdez, the journalists, congressional oversight committees, they're all seeing exactly how the network operates. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flicker as power systems strain under the assault. Dr. Chun looks up from her own terminal. Marcus, you magnificent bastard. The live feed is being picked up by news networks. They're broadcasting our situation as it happens. Through the static-filled speakers, they can hear news anchors describing the siege. Federal agents appear to be using military tactics against what sources describe as 2 missing police detectives who claim to have evidence of government corruption. And in 3 minutes, Rachel says, checking the countdown on her phone, Senator Valdez presents our evidence to Congress while the network is caught on live television trying to murder us. The irony isn't lost on Sarah, the network's attempt to silence them is becoming the very exposure they feared most. A third explosion shakes the compound. This time, part of the ceiling collapses, cutting off their primary exit route. We need to move to the secondary position, Colonel Washington shouts over the sound of falling rock. The old mine shaft, it's the most structurally sound section. As they gather essential equipment and head deeper into the mountain, Sarah realizes something profound has shifted. They're no longer running from the network is running from them. On Marcus's portable radio, they catch fragments of panicked communications. Abort the operation ... Too much exposure. pulling back to defensive positions. Control to all units, comes a different voice, calm, authoritative. Stand down. Repeat, all units stand down and withdraw. Through the dust and chaos, Sarah hears something that makes her heart race, applause. Distant, tinny, but unmistakable, the sound of applause coming through the radio speakers. That's the Senate chamber, Rachel realizes. Valdez just finished presenting the evidence. Marcus fine-tunes the radio until they can hear the audio clearly. Senator Valdez's voice carries clearly. ... And as we speak, the very agents attempting to silence these brave law enforcement officers are proving every allegation in this report. The American people are watching live as their own government tries to murder 2 police detectives for investigating corruption. The explosions have stopped. Through the periscope, damaged but still functional, they can see the federal vehicles withdrawing from the canyon. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah says to the group around her, I think we just won. But even as relief floods through her, Sarah knows this is only the beginning. The network may be exposed, but wounded predators are often the most dangerous. And somewhere in the corridors of power, people with unlimited resources and no moral constraints are already planning their counterattack. The radio crackles with a new transmission. Detective Brennan, Detective Torres. This is Agent Jennifer Walsh, FBI Internal Affairs. We're here to bring you in safely for your protection and testimony. Sarah looks at Torres, then at the survivors, who've risked everything to reach this moment. Agent Walsh, she responds, we're ready to come home. 3 months later, Sarah sits in a federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., watching as the final defendant in United States v. Morrison, et al., receives his sentence. The courtroom is packed with journalists, family members of victims, and survivors who've emerged from hiding to testify. Defendant Marcus Rothschild, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, Judge Patricia Henderson announces. Your conspiracy resulted in the deaths of at least 47 individuals and the systematic corruption of multiple government agencies. Rothschild, former CEO of Nexus Solutions and architect of the network surveillance system, shows no emotion as he's led away in shackles. He's the 15th high-ranking conspirator to receive a life sentence since the trials began. Sarah glances across the courtroom at Torres, who's sitting with his wife and children. The family reunion 3 months ago had been emotional beyond words. Torres's wife punching him for making her think he was dead, then holding him for 20 minutes while their kids peppered him with questions about being secret agents. Detective Brennan? A voice interrupts her thoughts. She turns to see Emma Shunn approaching, Marcus's sister who'd driven down from San Francisco that night 7 years ago. Emma, how are you holding up? Emma's eyes are red from crying, but she's smiling. I still can't believe he's alive. 7 years of thinking my brother was dead, and he was saving the world. Marcus had testified extensively during the trials, his 7 years of gathered intelligence proving crucial to unraveling the network's full scope. The conspiracy reached into every major government agency, dozens of corporations, and organized crime families across 3 countries. He saved a lot of people, Sarah agrees, including me and Mike. Through the courthouse windows, she can see protesters on both sides, supporters celebrating the convictions, detractors claiming the trials are a government witch hunt. The past 3 months have been a whirlwind of testimony, media interviews, and congressional hearings that have fundamentally changed how Americans view their institutions. Detective Brennan? Another voice, this one belonging to Rachel Martinez, who's traded her desert camouflage for a business suit and a new job as deputy director of a reformed FBI oversight division. Rachel, how's the new gig? Challenging. We're still finding network assets embedded in the system. It's going to take years to clean house completely. Rachel pauses, studying Sarah's face. Speaking of which, I have a proposition for you. Sarah raises an eyebrow. I'm listening. The Justice Department is forming a new task force dedicated to investigating cases like yours. Missing persons, suspicious deaths, patterns of suppression that suggest organized conspiracy. They want you to head it up. The offer doesn't surprise Sarah. Similar opportunities have been coming regularly since her testimony made her a national figure. Book deals, speaking engagements, consulting offers from law enforcement agencies around the world. What makes this different from the other offers? She asks. Autonomy, resources, and a direct reporting line to congressional oversight that can't be compromised. Rachel hands her a folder. Plus, you'd be working with some familiar faces. Sarah opens the folder to see photos and resumes. Dr. Elizabeth Chun, reassigned from CDC to lead the task force's medical investigations. Colonel James Washington, officially alive again and heading tactical operations. Even Audrey Whitman, who's completed her bachelor's degree and wants to work as a victim advocate. The gang's all here, Sarah murmurs. Not quite everyone. Marcus is taking a sabbatical from saving the world. He's enrolled at UC Berkeley to finish his computer science degree. Apparently, he wants to try being a normal student for a while. Sarah smiles at that. After 7 years in hiding, normal probably seems revolutionary. There's something else, Rachel continues. We found the bodies. Sarah's breath catches. Which bodies? The missing children from Marcus's original school trip. Mexican authorities raided the trafficking compound last month. They'd kept detailed records, DNA evidence, burial sites, everything needed for closure. The news hit Sarah like a physical blow. Throughout all of this, she'd been focused on the conspiracy, the cover-up, the institutional corruption. She'd almost forgotten that at the heart of it all were children who'd been murdered for profit. How many survivors? Besides Audrey? None from that specific operation. But the raids led to the rescue of 43 other trafficking victims, including 12 who'd been missing for more than 5 years. Sarah nods, processing the mix of grief and relief. Justice, she's learned, is rarely complete. But sometimes it's enough. Judge Henderson's gavel brings her attention back to the courtroom. Court is adjourned. The federal investigation into the conspiracy known as the Network is officially concluded. As people begin filing out, Sarah notices a familiar figure. In the back row, Agent Patricia Morrison, the FBI agent who'd led the siege at Haven. Morrison had turned state's evidence early in the investigation, providing crucial testimony about the network's law enforcement infiltration in exchange for a reduced sentence. Their eyes meet briefly. Morrison nods, not quite an apology, but an acknowledgement of the role she'd played. She'll serve 15 years in federal prison, a punishment that feels both too lenient and entirely appropriate. Torres approaches with his family in tow. So what's the verdict? Are you taking Rachel's offer? Sarah looks at the folder in her hands, then at the faces around her, people who've sacrificed everything to expose the truth. Survivors who've rebuilt their lives, families who've finally found closure. You know what? I think I am. Torres grins. Good, because I already accepted my position as your second in command. Presumptuous much? Hey, we've been partners through the apocalypse. I'm not about to break up the team now. As they walk out of the courthouse together, Sarah thinks about the long road ahead. The network may be broken, but corruption doesn't die easily. New conspiracies will emerge, new patterns will need investigation, new victims will need justice. But for the first time in months, Sarah feels ready for the challenge. She's learned that the truth is stronger than those who would suppress it, if you're willing to fight for it. Her phone buzzes with a text from Marcus. Saw the verdict on the news. Ready to save the world again? She types back, always. But maybe this time we can do it without faking our deaths. Where's the fun in that? Sarah laughs despite herself. Some things never change. And sometimes, that's exactly what the world needs. 1 year later, Sarah stands on the observation deck of the FBI's new Corruption Patterns Analysis Center in Quantico, watching her team work through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The facility is a far cry from the hidden caves of Haven, all glass, steel, and cutting-edge technology designed for transparency and accountability. Detective Brennan? The voice belongs to Special Agent Lisa Park, a recent recruit whose brother David had been Marcus's contact at Nexus Solutions. The family resemblance is striking, and Lisa carries the same quiet intensity that had driven her brother to risk everything for the truth. Just Sarah, she corrects, as she has countless times. The transition from detective to Federal Task Force director still feels surreal. What do you have? Lisa hands her a tablet displaying a pattern analysis that makes Sarah's pulse quicken. 17 missing persons cases across 6 states, all involving veterans who were pursuing disability claims against defense contractors. The disappearances span 4 years, but the pattern only becomes clear when you cross-reference them with pending litigation. Sarah studies the data, recognizing the familiar signature of organized suppression. Time between filing claims and disappearance? Average of 43 days. Never more than 60, never less than 30. Enough time to intimidate them into dropping the claims, but not enough for attorneys to build momentum. Sarah nods approvingly. Good work. Flag this for priority investigation and brief the team this afternoon. Through the windows, she can see Dr. Elizabeth Chen coordinating with medical examiners via video conference, Colonel Washington training a new class of tactical investigators, and Audrey Whitman, now Agent Whitman, interviewing the family of a potential victim. The group that had huddled together in hidden caves has become the core of America's most effective anti-corruption unit. Sarah's secure phone rings, a call from Senator Patricia Valdez, now chair of the Senate Oversight Committee. Sarah, we have a situation, Valdez begins without preamble. 3 separate whistleblowers from different agencies have gone missing in the past 2 weeks. CDC, EPA, and Treasury. All were scheduled to testify about chemical contamination cover-ups. Same playbook, different players, Sarah observes. We always knew the network had cells that survived the purge. Can your team handle it? Sarah looks out at her investigators. 27 agents and analysts have learned to see patterns that others miss, to connect dots that powerful interests work to keep scattered. Senator, that's exactly why we exist. After ending the call, Sarah walks down to the main floor, where the daily briefing is already in progress. Torres stands at the central display, outlining their current caseload to a room full of dedicated professionals who understand that their work literally saves lives. The Riverside drownings case has been reopened with new evidence, Torres reports. Mexican authorities provided documentation showing the victims were targeted for opposing a dam project that would have displaced indigenous communities. A hand raises from the audience. Agent Martinez, formerly Rachel's communications specialist at Haven. Do we have suspects? 3 executives from HydroCorp International are already in custody. The Mexican evidence confirms what Detective Brennan suspected 3 years ago. These weren't accidents. Sarah feels a familiar satisfaction as another piece of the puzzle falls into place. Justice delayed isn't always justice denied. New cases? Torres continues, nodding toward Sarah. She steps forward, accepting the tablet from Lisa Park. 17 missing veterans. Pattern suggests systematic intimidation by defense contractors. Agent Park will lead the investigation with support from Colonel Washington's tactical team. As the briefing continues, Sarah's mind drifts to a conversation she'd had with Marcus the previous week. He'd called from Berkeley, where he was finishing his master's thesis on ethical artificial intelligence. His contribution to ensuring the technology that had enabled the network's surveillance could never again be misused. Do you think we won? He'd asked. Really won, I mean. Sarah had considered the question carefully. The networks. Leadership was in prison, their surveillance systems dismantled, their assets seized. Dozens of victims' families had found closure. Hundreds of potential targets had been saved, and new oversight systems made similar conspiracies much harder to organize. But she'd also learned that corruption is like a virus. It adapts, evolves, finds new hosts. The price of freedom really is eternal vigilance. We won this battle, she'd told Marcus. And we built the tools to keep winning the next ones. Now watching her team prepare to deploy on another investigation, Sarah feels the truth of that statement. They can't prevent every conspiracy, can't save every victim, can't expose every cover-up. But they can ensure that the cost of suppressing the truth is always higher than the cost of telling it. Her phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Agent Brennan. My name is Dr. Jennifer Walsh. I'm a climate scientist who's discovered evidence of deliberate weather manipulation by agricultural corporations. I think they know what I found. Can you help? Sarah shows the message to Torres, who nods grimly. And so it goes. And so it goes, Sarah agrees, already mentally deploying resources to protect another potential victim. She types back quickly. Dr. Walsh, you've reached the right people. We're on our way. As the sun sets over Quantico, casting long shadows across the analysis center, Sarah reflects on the journey that brought her here. 7 years ago, Marcus Chun disappeared into the desert seeking solitude and stumbled into a conspiracy that nearly killed them all. Now that same desert serves as a testament to what can be accomplished when ordinary people refuse to accept that the truth should remain buried. The GPS tracker that started it all sits in a place of honor on Sarah's desk, not as a reminder of what was lost, but as a symbol of what was found. Sometimes the most important discoveries happen when we're brave enough to follow the signal into unknown territory. Her team is ready. The next case awaits. And somewhere out there, someone who thought they could bury the truth is about to learn that some things, once unearthed, refuse to stay hidden. Sarah Brennan, formerly Detective Sarah Brennan, picks up her gear and heads toward the helicopter pad. There's work to do, patterns to uncover, and justice to serve. The hunt continues.